Item 6, adoption of the annual budget. As a team, we've done well to get this far, so thank you for coming to the session. Today we're here to formalise the decisions we made earlier this month. Staff have gone away to produce documents for us to adopt, which reflect the decisions we made as a team. There's quite a lot of them. There's a major Volume 1 and Volume 2 referring to mainly the local boards. I thank you, Tamsin, and your staff for producing these to formalise. It's over to you, Tamsin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and tēnā koutou katoa, governing body members. So today marks the final step in the process for the annual budget 2023-2024. It has been a challenging stretch, and I wanted to acknowledge how much input and effort decision makers have given to this often constrained process. The report on today's agenda asks you to adopt the annual budget documents that reflect the decisions that you made on the 8th and the 9th of June. This is a procedural step to ensure that we are legally compliant with the relevant pieces of legislation. The annual budget documents have been prepared reflecting those decisions and include prospective financial statements on other financial information, a funding impact statement and rating policy reflecting decisions made on the 9th of June, the summary of the Tupuna Maunga Authority Operational Plan agreed on the 8th of June, which we are required to include by law, and local board agreements and other local content that were adopted by the 21 local boards last week. Draft budget documents were circulated to you last Tuesday on the 20th of June, and a drop-in session was held the following day to provide you with an opportunity to give feedback to us informally. The option to provide written feedback was also given. We received a few requests from elected members for minor changes, and these were made last week. Subsequently, the documents have been finalised and reviewed by our legal team, and they have confirmed that the documents are compliant with key legislation like the LGA and the Rating Act. The documents you are being asked to adopt today were circulated to you on Tuesday the 27th of June and will be attached to today's minutes for the public record. Any minor or editorial changes that might be required after the meeting will be approved under delegation by the Mayor and our CFO, Peter Gudsell. We will then look at these documents, getting these documents published and up on our website in the following weeks. As a final step, we will also engage with those Aucklanders who provided feedback as part of this consultation by summarising the decisions that you made on the 8th and 9th via closing the loop of written communication. Happy to take any part, and thank you, everybody.
Okay, is there any further questions of these people? In the absence of that, I'll move that we accept the recommendation that we adopt the budget and delegate the authority for any minor editorials to myself and the Chief Financial Officer. I have a second from the Deputy Mayor. Is there any questions or discussion about this? We've had several months of it. On that basis, I shall put the motion. Whoops.
Sorry, it's just a procedural against the vote, voting in favour of the budget but noting dissent on items. Do we do that at the time, Sandra?
Can we call for a division?
That can be done. Okay.
Division, Your Worship.
Okay, is there any discussion on this? Councillor Williamson.
Well, just quickly, Mr. Chairman, it's a package. You can't vote for the package, yes, but then say bits of it that make it up. I'm going to vote no, because then it's not a package anymore.
It's a bit tricky to do what councillor Dalton wants to do, because we've actually moved and seconded that we adopt the two things on the screen, so you'd have to vary that. But I'll take responses from councillor Dalton.
Oh, that is how the vote progressed from councillor Walker and Watson in the vote last week. They did support the annual plan and voted against the airport share sale.
Exactly.
And at that time, the comment was, and I agree with councillor Williamson, that makes it an unbalanced budget.
The thing was that when we voted on that, and we had it on clause by clause by clause, and they set out one clause. We don't have that as an option today. We've got A and B. So, but you're quite welcome to express your views on bits of it, okay, and have those recorded if you wish. Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask Sandra, the division has been called, and my point for clarification is what happens because the division has been called, what happens to those during the vote that wish to vote against put their name against the airport shares? What is the process in regards and the procedure for that, please?
You can just note that you were against the sale of the airport shares, and we will note that in the minutes.
Thank you. Done.
Okay, that allows you to have that and still have a budget, I think. All right, there is a division called for. Is there any further comments? No, we'll go into a division. And this councillor. Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment that I will be voting against the full budget for reasons that probably everyone around this table understands. Obviously, I'm against the sale, even the partial sale of a public asset like our airport shares. But also there's other parts of that budget. For example, I've recently been speaking to our local board chairs in my ward, and they are, feeling the pain of having to find hundreds of thousands of dollars of cuts to their LDI. I spoke to the chair of the Otara Papatoetoe local board last night, and he said to me that they've been advised they have to find $300,000 on top of that in order to now support the ECEs, the burden that's now been shifted onto them as part of your budget. So for those reasons and others, I will not be supporting your budget. Kia ora. But I accept, of course, it'll pass anyway, but I do just have to make that stand. Kia ora. Thank you.
Councillor Ferry.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to echo Councillor Foley's disappointment in how the ECE issue is being handled internally. That is not what I had expected when we negotiated that as a compromise, and I'm really disappointed that staff are moving in the way that they're choosing to move on it, and we'll be continuing to try to resolve that. Because I abstained last time, I feel I need to abstain again for the same reasons. And I will be doing that, but I just wanted to comment that way so that it's clear what I'm doing and why, because I think when you abstain, you do need to explain why you abstain. So that's it. Thanks.
Councillor Watson.
Acknowledging this agenda item today is almost entirely pro forma, Mr Mayor. I just thought it was just very important to perhaps make an explanation to other councillors in terms of the established custom and practice within the council, particularly when it goes to issues of importance, and in this instance referring to the airport shares, where a number of councillors made a stand. They had a chance twice to vote against or vote for the retention actually of all the airport shares. That was voted down. It would certainly, in the public view, then seem somewhat contradictory for people then to turn around and vote for it then at a subsequent vote. That doesn't make any sense. Hence, the practice that has evolved here over the years, where people recognise that they have not been successful in their stand on whatever issue it may be, but they have taken the appropriate response to accept that and vote for it to go through, but to have recorded their opposition, particularly when it's something of such substance as the airport shares. So to me, that's an entirely satisfactory course of action to take, and one entirely consistent with the practice here over the last decade. Thank you.
So what you say is you're quite happy to vote for it, but and make a note that you didn't like one bit. I don't like the bit about paying extra rates, but I'll note that as well. We're lining up now. At the moment, we've got Councillor Newman, Councillor Walker, Councillor Lee, and Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I just want to acknowledge Councillor Foley for the consistency of her position on that. I actually share her concern with respect to the $4 million of cuts that have been agreed for the local board. A number of us pushed for an additional 0.2 of 1% increase in the rating to ensure that we can meet that cost. I would have preferred 7.9 as opposed to 7.7 rate increase to meet that cost. A number of us wanted that, but the numbers weren't there. So, Your Worship, I have some regret about that, but the budget is the sum of all parts, and all parts need to be passed or it's not a budget. So therefore, notwithstanding my clenched teeth view on that particular part of the budget, I'll back it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's well said. Compromises and budgets are a bit like that. There's probably a bit in that everybody doesn't like, but we've got to have a budget. So we shall have Wayne Walker. Thank you.
I'd just like to endorse the comments that my fellow councillor John Watson made, and also to pick up on the unfolding issue of the early childhood centres. As I mentioned when I spoke to that item during the budget debate, I do not believe that there are any significant savings, because a substantial amount of overhead and also notional rent, which is an invented amount of rent, was allocated to those centres in the information that we received, which is the information that suggests that there's a possible $1 million saving. I regard that information that was put out as highly misleading. It's also based on the assumption that those locations can be given over to some use that will generate a return. And I know from visiting a number of these centres personally that I do not think that there will be an alternative use that would generate an amount of rental of the order that is made out. So my particular concern, Mr Mayor, and I just want to raise it here, is as much and all as there has been a decision around early childhood centres, around this idea, and I think it's just an idea that there might be some savings, how it plays out with local boards and how it plays out with actual savings, I think remains to be seen. And I do think, and I have asked, that as much as financial information around the early childhood centres needs to be released to the public so they can work out the true situation, because they've been largely kept in the dark, as have many of the local boards. So there's an unfolding situation there. It's a matter of how we manage it. There's still a great deal of sensitivity around that issue in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, if it turns out that you're right and it's enormously profitable, that'll go to the local board up there. And if it's not, it won't. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My apologies for coming a little bit late. I missed the start of the discussion, but I would just like to make a point. This vote normally is merely procedural. I mean, if we voted it down, there'd be people around the place having kittens, wouldn't they? But anyway, leaving that aside, I want to record my concern at the way the council has managed the airport sale matter, and I'm talking about a difference between what pertains and is expected in Parliament, and Councillor Williamson has already observed certain differences between the way we do things in local government and at central government. But in terms of conflicts of interest, I think the council advice to members that it was okay to own airport shares and okay to vote. And that's just not normal practice. There may not be a conflict of interest, but there could be an appearance. And I think that that advice needs to be looked at again. That being said, I would like to ensure that my vote is recorded again against the sale of the shares in Auckland International Airport. Thank you.
Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, Mayor, and yeah, I do understand the practice of noting, but on some of the big calls, my issue earlier and through the process when Councillor Ferry and I discussed, you know, saving all the shares, all the cuts and putting up the rates, there wasn't the votes for putting up the rates. So the cascade problem of noting, you know, if we had 11 notes on one of the issues, then the whole budget falls down. So I guess just we probably do need to discuss with going forward with the LTP what that actually looks like, because I guess the expectation is that you can note against one of the bigger levers, but if 11 of us note, then actually the budget falls down. But the but on the Cody kids, and I know that we shouldn't be going back into debate, but I do feel like the information has changed. I have given that concern to staff, and I am looking to meet with staff. The information isn't public because it is, I don't think, full and final, but I do have concerns, so I will be thinking of noting my opposition on the Cody kids because I believe the information has changed since our vote. But I can't, I won't, there's lots of things that I don't support in the budget, but we have to support an overall picture of our budget, and we all, every part of the budget changed through the process that we got to, and you know, not all of us are going to be happy, but my concern around Cody kids is I feel the information has changed and I've got concerns, but I have raised that with staff and we're working on that as well.
Thank you for that. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just briefly endorsing the comments of Councillor Newman and Councillor Hills. As I said in the previous debate, I would have much preferred that we left the local board budgets in place. And I made that very clear and had some yarns with many councillors, and as per, we couldn't get the numbers across the line for it, and that's a political process. But you know, the thing is, there are all bits of it that we're not going to like. You know, it's the nature of compromise, and the budget is a compromise. Every budget that we've had in Auckland Council is a compromise. And you know, I really acknowledge and I really respect the stance and the desire of councillors to want to note their opposition to things as part of it, and you know, to some extent I can live with it, but I do worry about where that process might lead over the next several budgets and into the future. I mean, we'll all have things that we might want to note, and I would consider noting against the local boards in particular. I think that we should have been giving them all of their money back, personally. But, you know, and the level of service cuts generally, I made that clear in the debate as well, where I sat with that. But, you know, I'd like to note my opposition as part of the debate rather than in the secretarial note or something like that, and just take it as read. Thank you.
I think that's a very grown-up approach. We've had several days in front of the press where you could say all those things there, and everyone, they noted who voted bits and pieces. Nobody's compromised more than I have, and I'm not going to note about against all the things. That's how you get to have a grown-up group having a vote that affects 1.5 million New Zealanders. And we'll hear from Councillor Leone.
Kia ora. I just wanted to make a comment that I will also be voting in support, but I would like it noted against the airport shares. Also just wanted to bring up the fact that I think the LTP process already looks like it's going to be a much better process for us. The fact that we've already managed to sit down and start looking at things and have the opportunity to look at all of our assets going forward if we do need to look at that. And also I just want to mention I was very clear about the sale of the shares and my support for mana whenua in the first instance if it would have been a right of first refusal, but I know that we would never get that support around this table, but definitely want to ensure that the council plays their role in working with mana whenua to look at them obviously having an opportunity. Kia ora.
Councillor, Deputy Mayor Simpson, sorry.
Your Worship, I would like to make my comments of a more positive note. You know, I think that this budget and my small history around this table has probably been a first. I don't think I have ever seen a mayoral proposal change so much. And I think in saying that, it's because everybody has compromised. You have, I have. You know, when it comes to rates, I know people who wanted a lot lower. I know people who wanted them a lot higher. When it comes to debt, there were people across the table who wanted a lot higher. I wanted a lot lower. When it comes to cuts or savings, there are things that I wanted to keep and I didn't want to keep. But actually, we have compromised. We have come to a place that I think we have enough people to push this budget across the line. And this is what we are tasked to do as councillors. It is our job to put together a budget. Now, you know, I could give you a list of things I'm not happy with, actually. If I was honest with you, I don't like the rates rise. I really don't. But I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I don't want this, but I do want this, because a budget wouldn't balance. So my sort of thinking to everyone around the table is, look, it's not very good when you come to a vote and you lose. I know what that's like as well. I've lost votes. But at the end of the day, we have to pull together a budget. And you've already made a note of things that you do like or you don't like. But now is supposed to be the procedural side of that. Now is the time to say, I would have liked this, but I didn't get that. At the end of the day, though, we have a budget, and collectively, it's our responsibility to move a budget for the annual plan 23-24. So I want to thank you, Mayor. You have behaved really well through this. You've changed, you've listened, you've been lobbied, you've really, I mean, when you look at your budget that started before Christmas and the budget we've got now, they're two very different things. And I think collectively, we should be proud of the way we have debated and discussed to get to this point. So my wish is for it to go through in its entirety, noting that there is something from every single person sitting around the table that we don't like, fine, but we've still got to end up with a budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Williamson, please.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'm really perplexed about this. Having sat through a number of central government budgets where ministers just hated some of the elements of it, but when it was finally put together and the Minister of Finance presented it, they had to go out and sell it. And that was part of the role of, when you have a group of 20 people around a table, finally the majority wins. It's sad, I wish it wasn't the case. I mean, I'd like to have recorded that I think we should have sold all the airport shares. I'd like to have it recorded that I think we shouldn't have gone for as high a rate increase. I'd like to have had it recorded we should have done a lot more trimming of spending around the place. If anyone thinks I got what I wanted out of here, I've swallowed more debt rats in this thing than I've ever done in my life. So if everyone's going to be able to put their little bit in there, I don't want this and I don't like that, it makes a nonsense of it. It's like going into a car dealership and say, I really like that car, but I don't want the engine or the gearbox. It doesn't work without them. It has to be the package. And I understand that everyone fought strongly and hard here. They did. I know a number of people who put a lot of effort into their debate that they didn't want this. But in the end, we've come back with a package that I would have thought we've just got to say, didn't get what I want, and I most certainly didn't. But I'm voting for it. And if you want, I'll give you a list of the things I want to record against it, what I think were wrong. And I think that makes a nonsense of the process.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. What I felt was really different about this budget, Councillor Simpson, was the significant decision around the airport shares. We come from communities those shares came from. We're growing up. I don't like the inference that we're not being grown up. We are advocating for our community. You will do it. Everybody does it. And we have a right to do that. And Councillor Williams and the opposition, I'm sure, would vote against the budget. You wouldn't have had 100% voting for the budget. You might have in your caucus. We're not in your caucus. We're standing up for our communities and what they believe in. 180,000 people voted for you, Your Worship. 15% of eligible voters. There are a lot of people that didn't, and we represent those. Because I know
How
what
you
the
represent
votes...
the people who didn't vote for you?
Point
How
of
do you know
order.
that?
I don't think you can interrupt.
True, so you can't say that. You can't say you represent the people who didn't vote for you.
I represent the people in my community who, in the consultation, wanted to hold on to the airport shares. They were their shares. They got nothing. Their shares have been used to pay down debt for every other council. They have nothing. They have no assets. There are some ex-councils, previous councils around here that are doing pretty damn well. They look beautiful. We don't. And now our capital investment is going to pay down debt for things that other people have. And I won't be told that I'm not being grown up because I want to vote against the sale of the airport shares. That is unfair.
Councillor Turner, please.
With all due respect to Councillor Dalton and everybody else here, because you've just come in with a comment, I was just going to say that I was going to beg everybody here to vote this through unanimously. We've got another 2 and a bit years ahead of us. We've got some big things we have to get right. For me, it's all about savings and productivity, and I want to work forward with you all as friends and get some traction on the ground. Thank you.
Councillor Philippine.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to say anything, but after hearing what I've heard around this table, I am going to say something. Firstly, I'm going to say that a councillor around this table during the 8th and 9th and the debate around this annual plan said that saying no is a cop-out. And I did not like that. Hence, my vote with that division. And now I'm hearing people saying, we can't do this, it won't be a balanced budget. But guess what? I've sat around this table as some of the other councillors since 2011, when we got 2010, when we got elected. And this is why I asked the procedural question of Sandra as to whether we can end up saying and noting our vote against some of the parts of this annual plan. Her answer was yes. Understanding orders, we can. I am taking that opportunity, and this is why I asked the procedural question. This is exactly what I'll be doing. Because no matter what happens around this table, and like I said, I was just going to note my opposition up until I heard some of the stuff that I'm hearing now. This is not Parliament. This is not. We have different standing orders. And because there is the right for us to say, I note against the airport shares and the ECE's Kāori kids, that is the two that I will be. Councillors that want to vote against 8 or 9, you have the opportunity to do that because we can understanding orders. So, Chair, that is the way that I will be voting when the division gets called, is that I will have my name noted against the sale of the airport shares, the partial sale, as well as Kāori kids. Kia ora. It's been called, yeah.
I'll just get Sandra to quote the relevant passage from the standing orders.
Thank you, Your Worship. I stand by my answer that I gave you before. However, I should have actually added that understanding order A 1.8.6, it allows for you to have your vote recorded in opposition to clauses within the motion that is on the table. In this instance, we don't have any clauses for you to vote against. Standing orders is silent on that. Therefore, it actually lands on His Worship to actually have the call on whether he will allow you to record your opposition to some part of the vote and the budget.
Therefore, as a result of what you've just said, Sandra, I will then ask the partai of the chair to see if he will allow us to end up voting against it. If not, I will be voting against the whole entirety of the budget. Thank you. Just partai to you, Bishop.
Councillor, just before the Mayor, the Mayor responds to that question, I just want to say, you know, while this might be obvious, the question we're asking of you today is not to approve again the budget. That decision has been taken in the approval of the budget in the previous meeting. What we're asking of you today is a separate question. We're asking you to adopt the budget for its implementation and to delegate authority to the Mayor and the Chief Financial Officer for any editorial changes. That is the only question we're asking of you. It's a very different question to the one that was asked of you for the approval of the budget.
So can I just respond to what, if that's okay with you, Chair? I am taking the advice from the Governance Advisor, who has said that if the Mayor approves people and councillors around this table to end up noting the opposition to aspects of this budget, it is at his discretion as the chair. And that's all I'm responding to, Jim. And this is why I will again ask His Worship the Mayor if he would allow those councillors who have indicated to do that.
Well, can I ask you a question about that then?
No problems.
Okay, if you allow people just to note that they don't, particular aspects they don't, is that affecting their decision to vote for the budget or not for the budget? Or is it just that you want to be able to record that you didn't like bits?
Yeah, Chair, it's recording my opposition, as I have and many others around this table, against certain aspects. There's only two aspects that I've indicated, and it's just noting my opposition to those two, and that's it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But you're still looking to adopt a budget.
Oh, look, that's the only two opposition. Those are the two issues.
What I'm going to do
Yeah.
is we'll see how it goes, is we'll run the division and you're allowed to not make a speech, but just state which sections you don't, and we will record that for the minutes. Is that all right? On that basis, I'll ask the Sandra to hold a division where you're going to go yes or no, and if it's and not a speech, but just a bit that you may feel grumpy about, if it makes you feel better.
Councillors, you're voting on the two clauses to adopt the budget and for any minor changes to be made. Councillor Baker.
I'm not grumpy about anything, so 4.
Councillor Bartley.
I'm voting for, but I'd like to note my opposition to the sale of the shares.
Councillor Dalton.
I'm voting for and note my opposition against the sale of the airport shares and the withdrawal from ECE. Thank you.
Councillor Darby.
4.
Councillor Ferry.
As previously indicated, I will abstain. I think that's a more transparent way to deal with not agreeing with everything. Thank you.
Councillor Filipaina.
Yes, in opposition to airport shares and Kāori kids. Kia ora.
Councillor Fletcher.
Yes.
Councillor Foley.
Kia ora, Your Worship. I'm still very grumpy, so I am voting against.
Councillor Henderson.
Aye.
Councillor Hills.
In favour, but against Cody Kids because I feel the information changed. Thank you.
Councillor Lee.
For, but please note my opposition to the sale of the airport shares. Thank you.
Councillor Leone.
For and opposition to the airport shares and Cody Kids.
Councillor Newman.
Notwithstanding my concerns, I vote in favour of a balanced budget.
Deputy Mayor Simpson.
For, noting I've compromised on everything.
Councillor Stewart.
For, I'm the same as Councillor Deasley Simpson.
Yeah.
Councillor Turner.
For.
Councillor Walker.
For, but note my opposition to the sale of airport shares and the withdrawal from early childhood education.
Councillor Watson.
For, record in bold print my opposition to the airport shares.
Councillor Williamson.
I want to say exactly the same as Councillor Desley Simpson, but I want mine in large print and bold.
Mayor Brown.
For, but on record, I'm disappointed we didn't sell all the shares.
So that's carried. 19 votes to 1 with 1 abstention.
Moving to item 7, the adoption of the revenue and financing policy. It's been attached. I don't know if any of you have read it. I read it right through and found it very interesting, really. It's a very good finance policy. It's a pity we haven't kept to it over the last few years. It says in here that we won't borrow for operating expenditure, which we tend to have done. So, please, are you going to address us there, gentlemen?
Good morning. This is a procedural amendment to the revenue and financing policy to reflect the decision to pause the long-term differential strategy for 1 year, reflected in the annual budget that you've just adopted.
And just one more thing to add, that you're about to set the rates for next year, and in setting the rates you're required to have consistency with your funding impact statement in the annual budget and the revenue and financing policy.
Thank you, gentlemen. Is there any questions about this? Is there a mover, please? I'll move it. Williamson, I'll move that. Oh, sorry, Williamson, the deputy mayor it was. Okay, any discussion about that? As I say, I thought it was a very good document. Let's just hope if we can keep to it. I'd like you all to read it. On that basis, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, carried.